Hey everyone, Stalky Boy here. Today we're going to be talking about Five Nights at Freddy's, and more specifically, if it's meant for kids. I often see people referring to FNAF as a game meant for children. In response to this, I've decided to put this video together to finally find out if Five Nights at Freddy's is intended for a child audience. To answer this, we need to start from the beginning. The original Five Nights at Freddy's, as a lot of people know, was made in a last-ditch effort by Scott Cawthon to make a successful game title. He went with this route because his last game was intended for children, was criticized with characters that looked off-putting by critics. His thought response to this was, I bet I could make something a lot scarier than that. I think this already paints the first game in the most certainly not meant for kids category, and the actual game itself does have darker themes in it. If you think murdered children is a good elementary school topic, you need help. But if you just use a bit of Google, you'll see this. As it clearly says here, people as young as 8 could join in. But then you realize they're referring to the toys and the cute plushies, not really the games. Alright, so what are the games rated? T for teen. So it's for... What? Yeah, it's very confusing, isn't it? I'm assuming this is just because of the famous Bite of 83 ending in which a child gets skull crushed by an animatronic.
Was that the bite?
This is obviously not meant for children. Oh look, little Johnny! Here's the funny Chuck E. Cheese man that we love to take you to. Oh no! He crushed your skull. Sleep well. Whether you think this is actually scary isn't really the point. The point is, these themes aren't exactly for children. It's not intended for children. Scott Cawthon obviously wanted to make a different game that wasn't his normal child-friendly game. He intended these games to not be for children, at least not super young ones. I can say with absolute certainty that if these games had visual representations beyond this old-fashioned 8-bit style, the games would be rated M in a heartbeat. A man murdering and stuffing kids into animatronic suits is incredibly gruesome and is something I think people take very lightly. But this isn't shown. We see Springtrap's insides, which is quite dark, but we haven't seen the children's remains. Thankfully, I really don't need to be seeing that. The game doesn't go all out, but I think we can safely say it's not for small children. Now, while it's not intended for small children, we can't ignore that a lot of people grew up with FNAF, myself included, when they were in their teenage years. But why is this? Why did we...
Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier and welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's, an indie horror game that you guys suggested en masse.
It's because we didn't play the games. They did. Most of the kids that are fans of FNAF didn't even play the game. We just enjoyed watching Markiplier's funny reactions. He was our safety blanket through the franchise. I have known about the franchise for 8 years, and I only started playing the franchise during my 7th year of knowing about it. I'm not the only one that thinks this way as well. In a poll I held, it was about 50-50 whether my audience had played the games or not. 15% of my audience only experienced Five Nights at Freddy's through YouTubers. And you might say that's a low number until you realize the majority of my audience are adults. If there are quite a bit of adults nowadays that only watch through YouTube, imagine how many kids nowadays watch the series through their favorite content creators. They can't exactly escape it. FNAF is extremely popular. They can't exactly afford to buy content, so they'll turn to the free stuff. I think this is most likely why a good portion of the fan base is younger. But this is the case for a lot of fan bases. Dead by Daylight and Call of Duty come to mind. They have quite a bit of younger players within them. And I think this is due to younger people just having more free time. I think if you look at most fan bases, the majority of the fans would consist of teenagers, unless it's a much older property that hasn't really had relevance in a while. Now, for the actual games themselves, I have played 7 of the 8 mainline FNAF games. 7 of these mainline games are terrifying and aim for horror. While the 6th game does have certain elements that are more on the cutesy side, it's only used to amplify the dread for the horror aspects of the game, having you stall for as much time before you have to eventually progress. It's like stalling at school on presentation day. Most of us hated talking in front of the class, but the more you hold off on it, the more your anxiety builds. It's way worse than just going up and actually doing the presentation. But there is one game that fails, and I would say aims for a child demographic. Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. I really dislike this game. It might be an actual fun game, I don't know, I haven't played it, but it removes so much of what made FNAF great in the first place for me. This isn't a review video, so I won't fully get into it. We'll just go into the scare factor. There's barely any. This game is allergic to being scary. There are so many bright and colorful set pieces. The claustrophobia that was present in every single FNAF game before, gone. Look at how much room you have in this office emulating classic FNAF gameplay versus the amount you get in Help Wanted. You also get a constant guide companion accompanying you every step of the way with the most friendly voice possible.
Gregory, are you certain you have seen a dancing rabbit lady?
Literally sheltering you from danger. Speaking of voices, this might just be me since a ton of other people seem to love the voices. I'm not crazy about them. I feel a lot of the time all it does is make it less frightening. Of course, horror is subjective, but what kept me frightened of these animatronic death machines was the uncanny valley between man and machine. There are a few instances where the voices do work for me, Baby being one,
Want to see the scooping room?
and Ballora.
I could hear you breathing.
Baby in particular, I think it has to do with her not being entirely trustworthy. You can almost tell you're being lied to, but there's a part of you that wants to trust her. The voice actress attempts to actually be creepy as well. I still don't understand how Afton can speak perfect English. Pretty sure his lungs were punctured.
What a deceptive calling. I knew it was a lie the moment I heard it, obviously. But it
The other time I find it effective is when it's clearly just the character's voice box. This just makes it less human for me while also being unnatural that you know there's something inside causing it. I know that sounds a little confusing. Examples that might help are Baddington's video sound check.
No, Chica, you're scaring me.
And FNAF Plus. I find Chica to be unnerving here, but I think it could have also been terrifying if she didn't say a single word. FNAF Plus is a bit of the opposite. The song coming from the Ghost Reader picking up on Chica definitely enhances the experience. It's not quite her talking directly to you, but it's still Chica communicating to the player. If there was just more garbled animatronic talk, I don't think it would have been as effective. In Security Breach, every character sounds like a cartoon, which, I get it, that's the point, but FNAF is supposed to be horror. Nothing about these voices are creepy.
Gregory?
In the mainline games, while I'm not super fond of the voices, I do attempt for scare factor. In Sister Location, I would say the voices add to the experience. In FNAF 6, I would say it can feel a little silly. I will never understand William being able to speak so well. Security Breach is everything the other FNAF games aren't. It's absolutely directed towards kids. While the actual games are terrifying, that's not what the smaller kids see. When they go through stores with their parents, they see the cute ducks and bunnies. They then proceed to have their parents buy them. This is how they get sucked in. Then they watch Markiplier be his funny self, and before you know it, they're fans. I don't really have a problem with this. I didn't have a problem with this because the games themselves were still great horror experiences. Except for now. Now we are in a very weird position. Is FNAF for children now? Security Breach? Absolutely. These past games? No. It's hard to say if the future of FNAF will continue to go in a more childish direction. Before someone says it, I'm not including FNAF World. It's obviously not meant to be a mainline FNAF experience. It isn't representatory of the series. Security Breach did very well financially, and companies love the big numbers. I'm happy it made a lot of money for Steel Wool. I'm very glad. I know they put a lot of work into this, but I'm concerned as a consumer and a fan of the previous games that the games are going to take a more childlike direction because of this. There are some people that are still keeping the spirit of FNAF alive. FNAF Plus is phenomenal and is absolutely going back to the horror roots of the games. It looks much more like what I love about the franchise, and there's a ton of fan-made content such as the famous FNAF tapes going over the incredibly dark lore. In conclusion, the FNAF games aren't for small children, most of them. I would say it's somewhere in the middle, like closer to 15 and up, kind of like things like Stranger Things and stuff of that nature. The incredibly dark context and unsettling nature of the games isn't something I would say is intended for kids. I know this because Security Breach exists and is a horror experience intended for children. When you put the two right next to each other, they're not the same. That being said, I believe it pulls in a lot of the younger audience members thanks to toys, plushies, and Markiplier's funny attitude. I really hope mainline FNAF can get back in line with what the series originally was, but if not, the spirit of FNAF will always live on in its fans. Whether it stays that way forever, we'll see. I sure hope it never fully forgets where it started. Thank you all so much for watching. This took a very large amount of work. A like would be greatly appreciated. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to subscribe for more content like this. What FNAF topic would you like to see me cover next? I could talk about how much I dislike Security Breach. And after playing the game, I am sure I would have a lot more to say. Also, I have a Patreon. Wink wink, nudge nudge. Thank you all again for watching. Take care.